Welcome to everyone. Thank you for attending today. Special welcome to our First Lady of the State of our Commonwealth, Susan Corbett. Thank you so very much for joining us. Also, thanks in particular to York College and Dr. Gunther Smith and her whole team for having us and hosting us this morning. Thank you so very much. Thank you to the Cultural Alliance of York County for bringing people from across our Commonwealth for the Impact Arts and Culture Conference. I know I feel up there is here with us as well too. Lots of folks again from across the state and beyond, and we are happy that you are here in York County, York City with us this morning. You are welcome to sign up your children for college here. You are welcome to come downtown and spend lots of money. You are welcome to take your shoes off, make yourself at home, and enjoy York for as long as you would like. Today's announcement certainly ties directly into the good work being conducted here. And I'd like to welcome everyone in York again into York College, to our friends at Artspace particularly. Thank you very much for being here. It is great to have you back in York. Many of you are aware of the partnership the city has embraced with Artspace for several years now. In early 2013, Artspace visited York and conducted a 2-day feasibility study. They met with artists and the arts organizations, community leaders, the development community, City Council member Henry Nixon in particular was very involved, our philanthropic community, among others, as well as hosting a very well-attended public community meeting as well. The feasibility study returned a conclusion that a potential artist housing project was in fact feasible. The next step was to scientifically test the market. In January of this year, we launched an online market study. Many may remember the launch party at the Strand Capitol. The survey sought feedback from qualified artists living within the region. We had a very positive response to the survey, which closed in March. So we gather today happily to report on those scientific findings. I have the exciting and enjoyable task of reporting the very favorable market studies showed that, reassuringly, our market in York could sustain the development of up to 56 residential units designed for, marketed to, and inhabited by working artists. 56 units in the city, that is very favorable and a positive report. And Roy, I'll take this chance now to say I told you so. Kidding aside, this reinforces what we now know and believe and have witnessed in our city for many years. Because of the hard work of many, to include the Cultural Alliance and its member agencies, because of a strategic focus, because of so many talented and creative artists, our York dynamic cultural scene continues to grow and improve. Our arts and cultural liaison and former poet laureate was personally responsible for getting our artists to take part in this process as well. So we envision Artspace as another evolution of York's artistic community. This is an enhancement and injection of additional energy to complement our community. Given all the excitement of the Impact Arts and Cultural Conference, I shouldn't have to highlight why this is important to York. But to be very brief, it is hugely important. It's incredible benefits. Our city, like many, has focused on our artists, organizations, and cultural development for many years now. I'll let Kevin, Representative Stryker, if you will, speak a bit more about the long history of that great work and its impact on our community and economic development. Before everyone starts to ask questions of where and what does it look like, rest assured that we'll have those answers. They will come in time. This very positive report moves our city and Artspace further towards site selection and pre-development. Our team will continue to proceed toward that end and work together to bring this exciting and transformative project to fruition. So I'll turn it over, I think, to Kevin and, Roy Close will talk a little bit about Artspace for the details, just a brief synopsis of it. And we do have copies available today and online as well. We will hang around afterwards for some questions if anyone has them, but again, in the interest of time, we got to keep moving. So thank you all again. Thank you to our partners, the artist community, the organizations, community believers. Thank you. Thank you, York College and the Cultural Alliance, and my team, the City of York. Thank you all so very much. I will now introduce Representative Kevin Schreiber.
Thank you, Mayor, very much. I will also echo the Mayor's welcomes to all that are attending today, and certainly to our First Lady of our Commonwealth. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you do for the arts in Pennsylvania and certainly in York. You've been a great friend to York, and I know your attendance on the PA Council of the Arts has also been very important. Patrick Dahlheimer here representing the arts community, infused from our city education all the way up now till successful future Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Mr. Pulo, of course, who was one of the individuals that first met with Artspace way back when they came to do their feasibility study, hosted a lunch for them at the Yorktown Hotel, and was one of the initial individuals from our philanthropic and also our arts community to talk to them. But very briefly, and the mayor really highlighted all of the things that I would echo, but obviously this is a huge announcement for York. This is very exciting and it is pretty darn cool. So I'm really excited to be here to help make this announcement, work with Artspace, but I think it has been said often and frequently that if you inject a community with art and artisans, the return on investment is immeasurable. I think that's true. I think it's been proven across our country. It's certainly been proven in our Commonwealth. It's been proven here in York. And we have made tremendous strides in York in recent years. We're fortunate to have a strong creative foundation in our community. We have a long history of excellent artists and artisans, craftsmanship and industrial ingenuity. Our artists and our arts organizations are professional, are creative, they're growing. Our business, philanthropic, and government leaders are entirely supportive and collaborative with the arts community. And these together form a very strong, very powerful foundation in York and in central Pennsylvania and in our creative sector. Culture absolutely builds community, and we're fortunate to have many cultural anchors in our county. Many cities employ the arts as economic generators, as the mayor mentioned, but in York we have done this rather successfully over time. Building off great institutions such as the Strand Capital Performing Arts Center, our historic farmers markets, the Heritage Trust. In 2005, I always think it's important to try to step back and look holistically at how far we've come as a community, because we can get mired in the day-to-day, sometimes negative news cycle, no offense to the media present. But it's important sometimes to take that step back. In 2005, Mayor John Brenner appointed an Arts District Task Force. Joanne Riley, the former president and CEO of the Cultural Alliance, chaired that with Frank Dittenhafer, a local architect. In 2006, the Artist Homestead Program was launched. We've seen several years of public art projects, from our very whimsical Gear Garden to Lafayette to PAL to the industrial art along Beaver Street and George Street. Our City Jazz Series was launched under Mayor Bracey, as well as a jazz festival. Cap Live, live music at the Strand Capitol, has been launched. First Fridays, second Saturdays, teen fourth Fridays have all exploded in our city. The Market View Arts Center was constructed and now houses York College of Pennsylvania's senior fine arts students. It houses the Pennsylvania Arts Experience, and this was built through a RACP grant that Governor Corbett had authorized. So it's important to see the long trail that we have made. The Pennsylvania Arts Experience is in there daily, and they represent all of the artists and the arts organizations throughout our county. Obviously, York College. Most recently, the Parliament in the Royal Square development has become a haven in our city for our creatives. York showcases our creatives in a constant open air gallery. Our city is an educator of our youth. The importance of our community's culture cannot be overstated. The benefits continue to concentrate a continued investment on cultural enhancements, and they pay significant social dividends on into the future. So today's announcement is obviously very positive. It is done through the collective work through our community, as the mayor had mentioned, and this will have an incredible and an exponential economic and community development impact on our community and our county and on central Pennsylvania. So it is a great honor to be here. It is truly exciting. I would also echo the mayor's "I told you so." So I really want to thank everyone for being here today, and it is my great pleasure to introduce a partner from the get-go, the Cultural Alliance of York County, and Miss Mary Ann Winkleman, our president of that fine organization. Mary Ann.
I just take a moment to thank you and just like what's left to be said, right? It's happening here in York. It's amazing. We're thrilled to be part of it. To have this august group of Pennsylvania dignitaries here with us today is very, very exciting, and we're looking forward to making this happen just as predicted. So we'll have Roy come up now and just give us more details.
Thank you, Mary Ann and Mayor Bracy and Representative for all of those kind comments. The First Lady said a little earlier that there seems to be something in the water in York, and I would certainly agree with that. This is a very energized community, and my colleague Anna Grocott right there taking something for Facebook or something, Twitter, whatever it is. That's why we have people like Anna, because people like me don't know. So we're delighted to be here. This is my third trip to York, and I think it's a very cool city, and I'm hoping that what has begun here will continue on. I'm going to give you a short presentation that just tells you a little bit about Artspace for those of you who don't know something, and then a little bit about what the survey did and what we discovered. First of all, we always acknowledge our partners, the City of York and Representative Schreiber from the House of Representatives. About Artspace, we were established in 1979 in Minneapolis as a nonprofit advisory entity to help artists who were being gentrified out of the warehouse district of Minneapolis and needed to find new space. And Artspace was created to help them find new space. After about a decade of this, it became apparent that the same artists were being gentrified out of the next space and the next space and the next space. And the board of directors made a really courageous decision to put Artspace in the business of real estate development so that we could own buildings and keep them affordable over time. And that's what has happened since the late 1980s. We have become the national leader in what is called creative placemaking. Creative placemaking is defined in a number of ways, but is essentially making important cultural areas, districts within a community, and as we see it, leveraging those cultural assets to bring about social change and other changes that are important for cities. We're based in Minneapolis. As I said, we have offices in 5 other cities around the country. Last week we completed our 36th project. It was our number 3 in Seattle, and our first real transportation-oriented development right next to a light rail station in Seattle. In 14 states altogether, plus the District of Columbia. Another 10 projects under construction or in development, including New York City, one in Honolulu, Hawaii, one in New Orleans, in Treme, the famous black neighborhood of New Orleans, and the one that I think is really, really fascinating, we're doing a project on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Altogether, we've done about 1,200 plus affordable live-work units that serve more than 2,000 artists and their families, and something like 3.5 million square feet if you put it all together. We are a nonprofit. We have a mission. The mission is to create, foster, and preserve affordable space for artists and arts organizations, and we find that all 3 of these things are essential to the way Artspace operates. Here's where we work. I don't know how well you can see it, but we've done projects all around the country. The black ones are projects in operation. The green ones are in development, and the gray ones are places where we've done consulting of various kinds. And the red circle, obviously, is marks where York is. So that's Artspace in a very small nutshell. We'll talk a little bit now about the Arts Market Survey. What is it? The survey, and there are actually 2 different kinds of surveys. It's an online survey that we use to measure the market for the space needs of a creative community. We do this because when you're in the real estate business, you're always taking some chances, and we like to reduce the risk by not overbuilding and at the same time be responsive to the market by building an appropriately sized project when we do build one. We've been doing this for a long time. We've conducted more than 40 of these things. Altogether reached something like 25,000, maybe 30,000 artists. We've never actually been able to pin it down, but it's a lot. And we've also, through our commercial or non-residential survey, which we did not do in New York, reached 1,000 plus arts organizations and businesses, and particularly creative businesses like graphic design firms and arts-friendly businesses like coffee houses and restaurants and bars. The objectives of the survey are basically threefold. Number one, we want to quantify the demand for whatever it is we're discussing, typically live-work housing for artists. We're looking to find out how many artists, how many units the market can serve, what other kinds of rental studio and creative workspace, and sometimes commercial space as well. What is the physical demand for that? We're looking as much as we can to articulate the concept. It varies from community to community. Some communities, for example, are interested in preserving a particular building. That's not necessarily the case here in New York. Some are interested in developing a particular neighborhood of a community. Some are interested in keeping artists from being gentrified out of the community. So there are a number of different concepts that come into play, and the survey helps us identify those. And it also helps us describe the artists, what kinds of art they're interested in, how large their families are, and what they can afford to pay, which is obviously an issue. So we came to York in February of 2013, did the preliminary feasibility visit over a couple of days, went home to Minneapolis, wrote a report, and we thought that there was something in the water, and that you guys ought to go ahead and do an arts market survey and find out what the market is. The survey went live this past January, and today we're here to announce the results. And that was where I was supposed to do the drum roll. Here are the key findings. I always miss my cue. 459 respondents completed the survey. That's a good number. And of that number, 167, about 36%, said that they are interested in relocating to an affordable live-work facility in New York if such a facility is built. And 134, 29% would be interested in renting studio or creative workspace on an ongoing basis. That is to say, not just occasionally. And I'll give you these same numbers in a different format here. And here you see the green bars. On the left is live work, and on the right is studio space. And the green represents those people who on the survey said they were interested in one or the other. And the blue, which is the same number, because those are the people who said they would be interested in both. And so what we do when in interpreting this, so you have 167 there and 134 there, but in interpreting these numbers, we take the full graph for live work, but we only take the green portion of the graph for studio space, because if we took the whole thing, we would be counting those 51 respondents twice. Did I make myself clear? So the conclusion is that a market exists in New York for a project of up to 56 units. And the way we calculate that is we take that 167 number in the live work column and we divide it by 3. Artspace uses a triple redundancy principle, and we simply take the number of positive responses and divide by 3, and we've discovered over the years that this is a good conservative measure of the market, and it tells us that if we were to build a project of 56 units, it would lease up reasonably promptly, and it would stay full. And that's the goal. It's not in our interests or in the city's interests or in the artist's interests to have a project that is half empty or has vacancies that can't be filled very easily. So we always tend to be conservative in the projection, and that's the basis of the 3-to-1. We also said a market exists in New York for up to 27 individual studio creative workspaces. And going back to this chart, you can see 27 is essentially 83 divided by 3. You get to about 27. So it's a sizable market for a community of this size. The likelihood that a project would be built to that size depends on many variables, such as we always look at the general availability of affordable housing in an area, and to see what the project that we would be building, what kind of competition it would have from market forces. There are many communities in which, even though HUD sets the affordable market rate, you can rent an entire house for what you would be paying in monthly rent for an affordable housing. So we look very carefully at that. We look at the number of income qualifying households. That number I gave you, 167, includes people who qualify for affordable housing and people who do not qualify for affordable housing. One of the gratifying things in this survey was that about 50%, a little under 50% of the artists who said they were interested are artists who qualify for affordable housing, and that tells us it's a strong market. So and a good thing. I mean, artists are generally poor, as the artists in the room know. You spend that time making art when you could be working on a paying job, and it's not necessarily the easiest way to make a career, but it's also an exciting one. We look at the availability of financial resources. The availability of suitable buildings or sites is a big deal. In Chicago, where we of course, there's an enormous number of artists. Artspace built I think it's 24, maybe 28 unit project. That was the building the city wanted us to redevelop, and that determined the size of the project. We probably could have done 100 units easily, but we ended up with fewer than 30. And we also look at competition from other developments. Housing for artists has become quite popular in some cities, and so we want to make sure we don't overbuild or contribute to overbuilding. We look a little bit at here at the artist disciplines that were represented in the survey. It was pretty typical, I would say. We almost always see the painters, people who paint or draw are the number one category. It's not true in New Orleans, where we had musicians as the number one category, as you would no doubt expect. 25% photography, 19% graphic design and art, and it's not until we get down to music with about 17% of the positive. These are the interested artists who responded, 70% of music. We go all the way down to 12% for writing and literary arts. And theater, my area, was like 9%, and dance, which is Anna's area, was 8 or 9% as well. So there's a mix, but the strongest area is the visual arts. So, knowing all this, what happens next? The market survey is sort of the second phase of 6, I would guess you would say. And it's sort of the point at which we get serious about this romance between Artspace and the city of York. Now that we know that the market is there, it exists and is a pretty good market. Now it's up to the city to decide if the city wants to proceed, and if so, the city and Artspace will agree to a pre-development contract. And pre-development is the phase of a project that begins with the contract signing and ends with the financial closing. And at closing, as soon as we close, we can begin breaking ground. And so we're looking at establishing a preliminary project scope, analyzing candidate buildings or sites, I had the good fortune to be able to take a tour of a number of buildings and sites when we were first here a year and a half ago. As Kevin was quick to point out, some of those buildings are no longer available, but other buildings or sites have replaced them. And it's certainly the case that we like to look at a lot of buildings or sites. Communities that say it's got to be this one building often run into trouble because buildings have a habit of going away. They don't necessarily move, but they cease to become available. Somebody buys them before we sign the pre-development contract. We had a situation where a building burned down before we could do the project. We had a situation where we had a building that turned out to have so much environmental contamination from carbon tetrachloride that the only way to clean up the site was to knock the building down. That was a building that went away in a literal way. So we spend some time looking at buildings and sites. We have to get site control, obviously. We can't move forward with a project until we have control of the site. We really begin doing outreach to artists and arts organizations, and we begin connecting with potential partners and commercial tenants. We had a couple of potential commercial tenants approach us last night at the reception we did. Prerequisite for moving forward, a site control agreement, and we really look for strong involvement of local leadership, and I'm happy to say that in York we have had that from the very beginning. That has been a constant, and it's one of the most positive things that I can say. I would regard that as even more important than the strong survey results. When you have a community whose leaders are interested in making it happen, it can happen. We're looking at a time frame of about 3 to 6 months and a cost of about $150,000, which is the first step in pre-development and is followed by 2 more steps in pre-development. The second step is we begin getting serious about design. We hire an architect and we apply for low-income housing tax credits, which is the #1 funding source for our projects in almost every instance. And we submit a tax credit application, and then in the third phase of pre-development, we're beginning to roll downhill. We're securing the final funding commitments. All of our projects have about a 10% philanthropic gap, which is to say that the money we can get from conventional financing sources, including tax credits, a first mortgage, other kinds of federal programs, we usually end up having to fundraise about 10%, and we do that locally. In this case, we would be fundraising in the community, in the state, and other philanthropic organizations that might be interested in a project like this in York. And then we go to financial closing, and the next day, presumably, there are shovels in the ground, and roughly 12 months later, there is a project that is opening, and artists are moving in. And that is about as far as I can take us now, and we will see what happens in the future. Does somebody follow me, or do I open it for questions?
No. What we're going to do is, because the Cultural Alliance is on a tight time frame, and we also have some other individuals that are going to kick us off in the next panel, we'll step to the back. There'll be questions. There'll be time for questions with Roy and Anna over lunch, and then a few of us will be out in the lobby area if you have any questions right now. But with that, I think we'll thank Roy and Anna.